NC State family, it's time for an honest look at your sports world. Let's get you hooked up for Pack Therapy, presented by First Horizon Bank. Here are your hosts, Tim Donnelly and Wolfpack football legend Mike Glennon.
It's time for some more Pack Therapy. I'm Tim Donnelly, as always, joined by my co-host, Pack legend Mike Glennon, longtime NFL quarterback. There's not a lot of easy ways to go into this one. The season not going the way NC State was hoping, and this past weekend, another example. At Pitt, a loss, 53-34. It was closer than that for a while, and by the end, it probably didn't feel that close. Pittsburgh was able to do some things, specifically through the air with a freshman quarterback to the NC State defense that, 423 yards, 3 touchdowns for Mason Heinschel. That's going to leave a mark. I guess we'll just start with the basics there, Mike. Reactions, like how concerned, I don't even know what the obvious concern is there. Like, how do you react to another loss now dropping 4 of the last 5?
So we'll start with the defensive side of the ball. I think the defensive side of the ball just straight up doesn't have the playmakers, the talent to compete at a high level in the ACC. It's kind of point blank. It's just a bunch of guys. I
think we're showing how difficult it is to talk about this one. The roster quality. The hard part about it for me is you could see this coming in years past, like pre-transfer portal. You would know, right? Like, okay, they didn't hit in the cornerbacks recruiting, and then maybe 2 years later they lose a guy to an injury, and you're just like, the next 2 years are going to be tough. With the transfer portal, you come into a season, and I think we knew there was no Peyton Wilson, but you bring in a couple transfers, you change up the scheme, and you think, you build up your optimism maybe a little higher. To be now here 8 weeks or 8 games into the season, it does feel like you're getting the cold glass of water to the face that the roster just ain't there.
It's funny, like you used to look at rosters and kind of know what year everyone was, and it's like, okay, well, our defense is young this year, but that means we're going to be good next year. Quite frank, I don't even know the ages of the kids on the team because they're basically all one-year players, and they may be here next year, they may not be.
And age corresponds with class less. It's like, he's 23, but he's got 2 years of eligibility left, when it used to be like, hey, you're 21, you're a junior, maybe a senior. You're 20, you're a sophomore, maybe a junior. Now it's all crazy.
Yeah, so the defensive side just doesn't have the guys, and I think what I think DJ Elliott's defense, I think, is a fine defense. Like, I don't see issues with the scheme or any of that, but to me, it's getting to the point where it's like the bend don't break thing, it just isn't working. So if you kind of remember a few years ago, Tony Gibson did this against Drake May. It was either like send the house or drop 8 in coverage. And I think that's almost at the point where this defense needs to be. It's like, we're more than likely they're going to score, so let's just send the house and see if we can get a turnover, get a sack, fumble, get something. And then if not, let's drop everyone back in coverage and make the quarterback read it out. But just playing true, like, rush 4, drop 7, it's just not having much of an impact. So that's about the only thing I think that the defense can do. And then offensively, it does feel like this offense is taking a step back, and CJ Bailey as well. Start with offensive line. Hollywood Smothers didn't have much to work with. He had the one great run. Other than that, it felt like Pitt's defensive line was in the backfield all day. And
when you get down early, you abandon the run. Hollywood Smothers with 8 carries is
right.
Never feels like enough, but I don't know what the alternative is when you're down 10-0 so early, and even in the second half when you're trying to restart, they hit the 85-yarder and it's quick.
Yep, and just offensively, they did some good things. I mean, you score 34 points. I don't think that quite is the narrative. It doesn't look that good. But I'm sure we'll get to CJ Bailey. We want to get to it right now.
We can get to it right now. I've referenced this in the past that the way he played, maybe the first 3 or 4 games, we may have gotten ahead of where he is as far as decision making, and still has all the potential in the world, still can make all the physical plays. But I think there's an obvious, we may have put the cart before the horse with the young man's development.
And to me, watching him, we said in the beginning of the year, kind of what you're alluding to, is he made the easy plays look easy, and he made even the difficult plays kind of look easy. And we got to the point where we were just expecting him to complete. If a guy was open, he was going to find him, he was going to complete it. These last 2 games, particularly against Notre Dame and Pitt, it doesn't quite feel that way. It's like he's showing signs of being a college quarterback. He's missed some throws. He's missed a few reads. It just doesn't look quite as confident in the pocket. And I do think I'm like, okay, so that's the problem is he's not playing as well. What's the solution to it? And I'm looking for some things, and only thing I can tell you never know the mental side. Mm-hmm. Like, is there something going on in his head? Whether it's anxiety, is it just he's just not seeing it as well? But it does seem like the mechanics, the footwork in the pocket is catching up to him a little bit. It's like at times he's drifting in the pocket when he doesn't need to. He's kind of retrieving where it's like just stay in the pocket and be firm. And that's something we've talked about earlier is he doesn't always play with a great base, which is sometimes taller for a tall, lean guy. But that's the only thing I can kind of see is his footwork starting to catch up to him, leading to some errant throws and decisions.
I'm not going to disagree with you because what you're saying is correct. But when people say winning solves everything or winning makes everything taste better or whatever it is, that's a great example because the footwork, and we referenced it, but it was just a reference when he was playing well. It was like, his footwork isn't there, but he's so physically gifted that he's throwing accurately anyway. Now that you're losing games, it's like, you know what? The footwork, it's kind of messed up now, right? Like I don't think that's something that's regressed as the season has gone along. It's just, maybe
sometimes it catches up to you, and like we're magnifying it now because it's
like the averages.
It's not working.
Like maybe 70% of the time he can get away with shaky footwork, and he just so happened to start with 4 games where that fell in the 70% of the time, and now we're hitting on the other 30. I still think he still makes 3 or 4 plays where I'm just going like if they can eliminate X, Y, and Z. I still think there's something there where, again, if this were 10, 15 years ago, and you knew pretty darn certain you had 2 more years with them, and you'd be everything would be awesome, and you'd be booking CFP tickets for like 2028. But in modern college football, you need to make sure he's seeing value and he's developing, and you're paying him well just to see what next year looks like.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I am still on the CJ Bailey train. I'm not hopping off that, and I think sometimes he's now started over probably. I don't know, 15 games or so.
A little over a season, I would guess.
And I'm sure some people are the honeymoon phase is kind of over. You've seen him, you've seen the exciting things, and now you're just trying to point out the negatives, and you kind of get bored with what he does well. I still think C.J. Bailey is a great quarterback. It's just going to be continue to work on some things to hone in on the details of the mechanics, on the footwork, and get him back to seeing the game like he was in the beginning of the season and making those plays that he was.
Let me make sure. I think it's 19 games he's had at least 20 attempts. Now, obviously, a few of those were thrown in there after Grayson McCall injuries. It's him. It's the offense. It's a little bit of everything. The way I described it, and this is kind of how I felt, is I'll use an analogy. I love an analogy. Like a piece of electronics, like a computer or a modem or something. The first time, like your screen goes black, you're like, oh, that's weird, right? And turn that off, turn it back on. Second time, you talk yourself into it, like, oh, that's crazy. Thing happened twice, right? But the third time it happens, you're like, oh no, how much does a new one of these cost, right? It's suddenly those first 2 are no longer just. I felt that for NC State as kind of a whole against Pitt because. You could explain away a lot of the other ones, right? You lose to Duke, but the offense looks good. There's some weird turnovers, maybe a referee's call, and you're like, okay, you're good. Virginia Tech, strange one, right? That's all right, you get one. That's a bad loss, no excuses, is what it is. Even the Notre Dame, right, on the road, ranked opponent, not great. The Pitt one was like, oh no, it's broken, right? Mm-hmm. Oh no, something here isn't working. It was that realization that, all right, I got to go to the Apple store, or I got to go to Best Buy. Like we're going to have to replace some of this. And the hard part about that is looking at the schedule for NC State is you still have 4 games. You still have 2 ranked opponents up next, Georgia Tech and Miami. Obviously, Georgia Tech this weekend at home. You use the term, like, I don't want to just talk problems, I want to talk solutions. They aren't any easy ones out there, right? Like certain parts of this team are broken, and outside of what you described on defense, I don't want to call it a gimmick, but bring the house or drop everybody, like that's not how any defensive coordinator wants to call it. I don't know what the version of that is on offense. Maybe running CJ Bailey a bunch, going with more options. I'm not sure what it is. Obviously, they had the big play on the trick play, but I don't want to get to that's very Robert and I of like, hey, we can hit 3, fake screen deep balls, and maybe that's enough. Like that, they shouldn't have to go there.
Yeah, I think it's just the offense can keep doing what they're doing. They just, it's an easy thing to say, but they just need to execute better. Starting with the offensive line, when Hollywood Smothers has holes to run through, he's going to run for over 100. And when CJ Bailey has time and got to get him back to playing the way he was, but you give him time, you give him a clean picture to look at, I trust CJ Bailey's going to get the job done. And then on the receivers, I think they've been solid. Again, I don't think versus man coverage, they're getting a ton of separation. There were times CJ missed some throws. But all in all, I just think it needs to be a cleaner picture for CJ to get him playing at a high level defensively. I think you got to start taking a few more risks.
Correct me if I'm wrong on the receivers here. And I've said this about some Carolina Hurricanes recently, so if you listen to the afternoon show, you've heard a similar take. The wide receivers have been too good, or the pass catchers, because I want to include Joe Lee here. And Joe Lee had obviously the awesome play finishing with the leg not working, whatever that was. They've been too good to get mad at, right? But they haven't been great.
No.
You know what I mean? Which puts them in a really weird spot where it seems like if the offense isn't working, we put all of it on the offensive line, or we put all of it on the play calling. Obviously, CJ Bailey's now in the crosshairs. And the receivers, the pass catchers, never really get there because they've played well enough to not get mad at, but they haven't been playing up to their potential as well. Like there is, if there's a blame pie for how this season has gone, they're eating their slice.
Yeah, I think, relating it to like the defense, how I said, waiting for a playmaker to show up. At times, we've seen every receiver flash, and they have shown up. But consistently, week in, week out, there hasn't been a ton of, like, consistency or we need a play, we're going to this guy. I guess it's been Justin Jolie, but it hasn't been even to the point where it's like everyone on the field knows the ball is going to this guy and he's going to win the one-on-one matchup. So, again, receivers have been good. I don't think, to your point, they probably played up to their full potential, and hopefully we could see them kind of put it all together this week against Georgia Tech.
Second on the team in receptions, Hollywood Smothers. First, Justin Jolie.
Yeah.
So the wide receivers specifically, they've been spread around so much that they really, tight end, running back are more involved in the passing game than really anyone, although some of the yards, and like Anderson has some big plays, so that changes some things. The good news is, right, there was a lot of doom and gloom in this first segment here on Pack Therapy. The good news is Dave Doeren is enjoying coaching this team. He loves coaching this team, which he told everybody on his radio show this week. Hasn't always been the case, specifically last year. We react to some of what Dave Doeren said on his radio show coming up next right here on Pack Therapy. Don't go anywhere. Back on Pack Therapy. I teased it before that quick break. Dave Doeren had some very interesting comments this week. Well, I'll read one of them right here for you. I'll go word for word. I don't think it needs a ton of introduction, but it did come from Wolfpack Weekly, his weekly coaches show. Quote starts, "Last year, we were winning some games, and kids on our team were pouting and complaining because they weren't getting the ball. I hated coaching that team last year. There was so much selfish stuff on that sideline. We don't have that on this team. We've got a bunch of guys that actually really care about each other. They practice hard. They're coachable. They want to win. But for whatever reason, there's penalties, a guy making a mistake at the wrong time in a key moment that's helping the other team. We've just been really good at beating ourselves this year. And he goes on to continue, but I'll end it there. You could have complimented this year's team without saying everything you said about last year's team. Like, you didn't have to preface, if you wanted to say these guys are coachable, they work hard, they care about each other, you can say all of that without saying, except for those punks last year, which he didn't actually say, but it's, coach speak, kind of, that's the translation. How would you feel?
Well, you're asking if I was on a team last year or what?
I'll specifically ask you if you were on the team both years, because there's a lot of guys that were on the sideline last year and on the sideline this year that are, who he's talking about, and you hope it's not you, but it's still kind of a weird,
Yeah, I think I know who he's talking about, and I think that guy plays for Texas A&M right now, and he's playing really well.
We noticed that we talked about some of the stuff where even when he was catching a pass,
yeah,
Casey Concepcion
I think that's what it was more about. It was like our best player last year who paid all. It was like the first true negative effect of what NIL is and the problems it can have within a locker room. And I don't feel wrong saying who I think he's talking about, because everyone that was at Carter Finley Stadium last year saw Casey Concepcion having poor body language and all that. So I imagine that's who it was. Was there other guy? And
I would be very surprised if it was just him.
Just because it wasn't just him.
Because we know the way locker rooms work, and if there's one, usually he's got a clique that he runs with, and they're approaching each day with the same attitude. I'm not putting it all on Casey Concepcion, although I will say he's probably the highest.
If
profile.
I was on the team, I would think I would know who he was talking about, because I would probably have seen it firsthand for myself. Whether it was one guy, whether it was five guys. Maybe it's some guys on the team, but that's what a coach in college football has to he's got to be able to rein that in and not let that happen, which isn't easy to do. I mean, you're talking about guys that are making a lot of money, and outside probably the head coach and offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, or maybe even them. There's players that are making more money than the majority of the coaches on staff.
Yes.
Which it's just that's what it is. And as a coach, you have to learn how to not let the negative in that become a problem, because that's the reality of it. Is people are on 1-year contracts. They want the ball because they're playing for money next year at this point. And that's what the NFL is. But NFL has contracts, so you don't have to worry about that quite as much as every single player. As a player, I would probably look in the mirror and hope it wasn't me that he's talking about, but they probably saw it firsthand as well and know exactly who it was that was causing the problems.
And just to complete the loop, Concepcion's playing really well at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Now, maybe what happened last year was a humbling experience, and he's in a better place mentally. And again, I don't want to put it all on KC, but another coach is getting pretty good performances out of him, and it seems like he's bought in. He's returning kicks. The hard part for me with a coach, and this is Dave Doeren, I think he's done a pretty good job of it over his time. Like, obviously, he's been leading NC State for quite some time now. When you're the head coach, everything that happens within that program is on you.
Exactly.
So if you're throwing theys and thems and pointing fingers, you're talking about you, right? Even if it's you chose the people to bring into that locker room, you recruited them. You can say like I was wrong, but it's an I thing. Like, and even if you had nothing to do with it, you did because you're the head coach and everything answers with you. And I'd say the same thing about a coordinator, about a unit, right? Like if the head coach goes to the wide receivers coach or the offensive coordinator and says, our wide receivers are running a bunch of bad routes, and you go, I'm telling them the good routes. No, that's not your own. Like, it's not just your job to tell them; it's your job to get them to do it.
Right.
So if the team isn't bought in and you hate coaching them, that's on you, right? Like, you have to put together a team that is in your image or in your culture. So I just don't like. I don't like it being said. You can think it because we're all human and it's there. Saying that out loud, I think, is kind of missing the forest for the trees.
I do agree, and it's particularly at the college level, the coach is ultimately responsible for it all.
Mm-hmm.
The program is a reflection of how the coach runs it, and the old saying, kind of, coaching is either what I coach you to do or what I allow you to do. I will say, it doesn't seem like they put up a ton of. It doesn't seem like they were trying that hard to get Casey Concepcion back
This year.
Correct.
Yes.
And I think the first year, again, this is me watching from afar. Casey looked like he had a great attitude. He looked like a guy that was in the spirit of the team. And last year it didn't feel that way. So to your point, Dave did try to correct it. And it's like, we don't have to bring this guy back. He's a good player. We know he's a good player. Frankly, the results weren't there with him last year either. And if he's a negative in the locker room and not really performing to his what you're paying him to do, then I didn't have a problem letting him walk. To saying it out loud, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's the right thing to say, and the timing's interesting, but yeah, I don't know what else to say about it other than yes, the program is a reflection of the coach.
And I want to get your opinion on this as well, because you brought up the money aspect and how players are making more than most of the assistants, and we don't get exact numbers on how much each guy is getting or what each NIL deal is worth. So we're estimating a bit here. Will college settle into like where the pros are? Because in the NFL, a lot of players make more than a lot of coaches, and there are contract years. And coaches understand that, right? Or there's, you see it every year at the end. If you're a gambler, you may dabble in this, where someone needs 80 yards for an incentive, and the coaches are like, "Oh no, it's not selfish for you to want 80 yards to get an extra $500,000. Like, if this game is a 2-score game, we're gonna make sure we get you that 80 yards." Like, you see that kind of stuff where in college, all of that is seen as such a negative. Like, if you want to, like, if Hollywood Smothers really wants to run for 1,200 yards because he knows what that can do for him financially, I don't think that's him being like, I'm not saying he does or doesn't, but I don't think that's him being like a horrible person or terrible for the culture in the locker room. I think that's him making sense.
Yes, but I would say what's different about that is like that's in the contract. That money is coming from the owner of the team is paying that player, not there's a threat that some other team is now going to poach.
Well, I guess the incentives would be the wrong way. But when an NFL player's in a contract year,
yes,
like that they want a little bit extra. Like that they want to.
The issue is every single player in college football is on a contract year.
Yeah,
every single one of them. It's not like we're talking about 10 guys on the team. It's hard to maneuver, and frankly, that's probably what coaching is going to be more about now in college football, is how do you handle NIL from the fundraising to the picking the players in the portal who you want, how do you pay them, and how do you handle the locker room within it? It's a totally different sport, culture, all that than it was 5 years ago. And whoever handles it the best is probably going to be the coaches that succeed the most.
I 100%, and I've admitted this, I overestimate how much sense people make in these arguments, because I think you could have like an honest conversation player to coach and say, like, listen, we're going to do everything we can to maximize you, but there's going to be times where we ask you to sacrifice too, and just trust me that against Campbell I'm going to get you the stats you need, or if you're not coming out of games when we're up 24, you got to trust me on that, but I really need you to block on first downs. Like, you can have those conversations. I played at the University of Delaware, much smaller than NC State. I've said publicly that I think they should have like a handshake conversation when you get a recruit, meaning Delaware should. Give us 2 years. Then we'll put out highlight tapes, right? Like, I want Delaware to have a pipeline to a school like NC State where it's like, then if you perform, if you do what you should for 2 years, we're going to do everything we can to get you to the ACC for the next 2. I think that makes sense, because, like, all right, you can't go to NC State straight out of high school. Let's help you get there. But in exchange for us helping you do that, I need you to commit to some things for us. Like, that to me makes sense. But I don't think there's a lot of sense being made in these conversations.
Yeah, I think NC State's in kind of an interesting spot when it comes to NIL and all that, because we're not necessarily a stepping stone program, but we're not the program where everyone wants to go to. To kind of come back to our original conversation about the defense and just having a bunch of guys, they did lose like 5 guys, some of which are playing at LSU, South Carolina.
Cisse's balling out pretty good in a way that makes you think if you would have kept him, he could have changed some of the defense.
And to me, that's why the portal, identifying talent, finding those guys is probably more important than anything right now than the great coach schematically X's and O's. It's more about finding the right guys and figuring out, okay, how much do we pay these guys? It's hard. I don't think everyone has the answers yet of how to go about who do you pay, how much do you pay, where do you find the guys? I mean, it's not an easy job. The NFL, there's, to our point we talked about earlier, there's a couple hundred guys that are going to be free agents that the GMs and scouting departments have to focus on. College football has, I mean, we're at 130 Division I programs times 100 players each. Like, that is not easy to go about finding these players.
Yes, and I was talking with, and there's more Dave Doeren quotes I want to get to here, but I was talking with Gino Torretta, 92 Heisman Trophy winner for Miami the other day, and we got chopping it up about that other team, Bill Belichick and UNC, and Gino went straight to, I don't know about all that 33rd NFL team. I don't know what that structure means for UNC. But looking at the future of college sports and college football specifically, the thing that you need to take from the NFL is a scouting department. You need full-timers that are watching every other power conference team and every FCS team and every group of 5 team, looking for the player who the market doesn't value, who is actually really good. And you need regional scouts, and you need like, that's where he went.
Yeah.
And I thought it was an interesting kind of point that some of these services, I don't even know if everybody knows what's going on like behind the scenes, where you'll subscribe to a service and they supposedly will monitor the entire country and the entire transfer portal, and they'll just send you names that seem like fits for your team, and then you look at them because
there's too many.
Thousands go in, and it's just I think of it like this in radio. I don't know if everybody thinks this, but a lot of you probably do. Like, I talk sports with my buddies. I could be in radio. So when you put out I've only once been the person that hired a host, and you put out the like Indeed statement, right? You just get hundreds and hundreds of resumes. Most of them have absolutely nothing to do with media, nothing to do with they're plumbers, they're accountants, but they love sports, and you get them, and you need to just set up some kind of
filter,
filter, like a gate where you're like, can we take this 1,500 resumes and just put the 100 that makes sense on my? You don't look at the 1,400, right? So you search for the keyword like communications or media, and those get brought up because it's impossible. And the transfer portal is way bigger than that. And you don't judge anybody on a resume. You got to watch a certain amount of film to see if they're legit. It's very, very difficult.
We're going off on a different tangent, but thought that I've had recently is how much. I almost wonder, where did all the money go from the football program brought in, like back when I played? I look at the staffs now. So obviously the head coaches are making crazy money. We're seeing it all across the country. Coordinators are making so much more than when I was in school, position coaches. Mm-hmm. But the staff has grown so much. When I was in school, there was one head strength coach and one assistant. There was a director of recruiting and an assistant director of recruiting. Now they have, it feels like 10 strength coaches. They have a GM and then like 10 people under that GM. Assistant coaches, now there's all these quality control. I don't even think there's like nothing anymore. Plus they're paying the payers $12 million or whatever it is now. I'm like, where was this money going before?
The joke,
I guess the athletic department was just keeping it.
The joke would be like the track teams were chartering flights. Like you were supporting
right.
You were supporting
but
everything.
Are they not now?
I think there's I think, again, we're on a tangent here, so this will be my last point on it. Athletic programs are running much, much better businesses now.
Yeah.
They're finding money in more places. I can't tell you the amount of articles I read last 3-4 years that teams that always were against selling alcohol in stadiums are suddenly opening up alcohol sales.
Right, there's a lot more alcohol. I think the gambling.
So
maybe there is more money coming in.
There's
a lot more money going out.
There was a lot of money they just weren't choosing to receive.
Right. But to wrap up what you said, I think the scouting department is a crucial part.
Yes.
And arguably more than to your point, more than the NFL, just because NFL, it becomes, you can watch college football and pick out the very best of the best. You can watch, again, you're only watching a couple hundred guys in free agency, and it's a little bit easier. There's just, the numbers are so hard, and how do you find the guy that's interested in NC that you identify and is like, okay, he's interested as well in us versus,
talk to their agent. Here,
I guess so.
Here, and to bring it all the way back to the NC State defense, the thing we talked about with State's defense is they don't have that dynamic playmaker, right? Get the ball in their hands, interceptions, sacks, whatever. Bishop Fitzgerald, who was at NC State, transferred to USC, where he has 5 interceptions, a touchdown returned. He's the leader by far as playmaking at Southern Cal, which it's not like they don't bring in dudes. He's second on the team in tackles. He has a sack. He has 2 passes defense, 5 interceptions, 86 yards of interception returns, including a touchdown.
But
that would go a long way towards helping out what they're
but
dealing
you can't use it as an excuse, because every team's battling the same thing. Like, NC State is not the only team getting poached for players. Every team's getting poached for players. So, to kind of put a bow on it, there's all these rumors of Dave retiring. It's like, can you blame him?
We're not going to put a bow on it. We're going to talk about that right after this here on Pack Therapy. Back here on Pack Therapy, where obviously big game this weekend, Georgia Tech. Tough loss this past weekend, Pitt. But in the middle of that, Dave Doeren tells everybody he has no plans to retire. 4 more years on his contract. He wants this program to be as good as it can be, and he wants to help it get there. I think it's fair to say it's not great when your coach has to just confirm that he wants to stick around, right? When in the middle of a 10-win season, you don't hear coaches saying, unless they're 85 years old, saying like, I don't plan on retiring. Going into Georgia Tech, number 8 in the country, Miami, number 10 in the country, what does that do? Like does that? What does that say? How does a fan base and a team react? I know I just asked 9 questions, but it brings about a lot.
Again, to me as a player, so if I heard a coach talking about that, it'd be like, okay, what does that mean for my future? And I don't know what it means now because again, everyone can transfer. It's like, before it'd be like, oh, they're going to, possibly bring in a new coach in. And what is that? Who would that new coach be? Will he like me? All that. Everyone's probably always thinking of their future. Am I going to be at this school next year, regardless of who the coach is? I guess now it's almost like the NFL. When you bring in a new coach,
does he want his guys?
Turnover rate is extremely high. So as a player, obviously you got to have blinders on it and keep the game week and not get ahead of yourself. So I don't think it'll be a big distraction. Like coaches being meant or talked about on the hot seat is a constant in all sports. So I don't think it changes the player's mind. As for Dave Doeren, I have absolutely no inside information to know what he plans on doing. When he said that he doesn't plan on retiring, my first thought was, why would he say that for this season? You still have 4 games left. You have a top 10 team program, and why would you come out and say, oh, well, yeah, I'm thinking about it? And then 2, it's like a few years ago this happened with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was cut by the Colts but still owed like $30 million. But if he retired, he was no longer owed that money. So if I'm Dave Doeren, I would never say I'm retiring because there's probably some buyout or clause in his contract that he's no longer owed money. So for many reasons, never expect him to come out and say, "Yep, I plan on retiring at the end of the season."
To build off that, we're learning so much about coaching contracts. The buyouts are ridiculous across college sports when they get fired. Brian Murphy, WRL sports investigative reporter, I saw this on his Twitter. He looked into the Brian Kelly contract. Essentially has one sentence in it that says he must try to get a new job, right? Because he's getting 50-something million in buyout money, but there's offset language. So whatever he makes it his next coaching job, or I believe next football media job, is subtracted from what LSU has to pay him out of that 53. Same with James Franklin. This is same with NFL players. Like, buyout language is a thing. But Brian Kelly's was literally like, coach must make an effort to mitigate bing, that's it. So, of course, as an investigative reporter would do, Brian Murphy went and found Dave Doeren. It's like 3 paragraphs. It's much more, like legalese. Like, I think it would be kind of, where Brian Kelly, if they call and say like, hey, are you looking for a job? He could go, yep. And they would say, all right, your buyout check's in the mail. If State were to move on from Dave Doeren and he was expecting buyout money, he might have to show postage of resumes that were submitted and, show effort and did you apply for this job? I'm not saying that's exactly the case, but there's a bunch of language that I don't understand because I'm not a lawyer. So you got to be careful along the lines of what you're saying, whether you're Dave Doeren or anyone else, about what you say and how you say
Unless
it.
you want like a true farewell tour, kind of like what Roy Williams did, like what Coach K did a few years ago. I don't understand why he would come out and say that at this point in the season.
It is not great that you have to answer those questions. So
no.
When people are asking, this offseason, you're done with this, right? That's not the best thing for you. Quickly here, 5 minutes. Let's do a conversation on State Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech 8th in the country. They're undefeated. Some in our state of North Carolina would say Wake Forest should have beaten them. There was a bad call at the end. Guy was offsides, would have ended the game. Either way, you are what your record says you are. 8-0, 5-0 in the ACC. Haynes King is becoming a cult hero. He's their quarterback, tough guy, doesn't throw for a ton of yards, but kind of a seen as a winner. If State's, and by the way, State's dealing with, we get these availability reports now, dealing with some very high-profile guys that are either out or questionable. So, with a lot of adversity stacked up against them, to not be cliche, this is 100% the game that Dave Doeren wins, right? When everybody's out and nobody's believing and the back's against the wall and you're talking about rumors, like in his history, this is when it happens.
Vegas seems to think there's a chance of that too. I was surprised to see the line open up I think it was opened up at 6.5 and is down to 5.5, being NC State being the underdogs. But I'm not completely sold on Georgia Tech yet. Like, I'm not saying they are a good team. I don't know if they're 8-0 top 10 good. Like, Haynes King is a good quality college player, but I think he's got kind of that competitor, that winning mentality that helps. But just from a straight team talent wise, I don't think they're a top 10 talent team. So to your point, backs against the wall, low expectations, home game at night in Carter Finley. Could this happen? I think it can, just because NC State's defense has struggled more against the pass, and Georgia Tech isn't quite the passing team. Haynes King is not the thrower that they've seen some of these other teams. So it's going to be more about stopping him in the run game, which NC State's shown to do. I mean, even against Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love and whoever the other running back there is at Notre Dame are talked about being the number 1 and 2 running backs taken in the draft. They did a good job against them. So if NC State can kind of stop Haynes King running the ball, I think there is a chance that they can pull this one off.
The hilarity of it is Georgia Tech was known for so long as the triple option team. They had quarterbacks that ran the ball, all of that. They've now gone pro style, and they have a quarterback that's run for like 34 touchdowns in the last 3 years. No matter, you can't get away from your DNA. Georgia Tech, you stop the run, you stop the running quarterback, you're going to be all right. They obviously throw it more than they did then, but definitely not a ton.
Yeah, I mean, he only has 7 touchdowns passing on the year.
And
so to me, it'll become, can
12
NC State
rushing
tackle?
Touchdowns. Yeah.
We've seen them struggle with tackling in the past. Haynes King is a physical runner. Can they tackle Haynes King? And then offensively, how do they bounce back? How does C.J. Bailey play? coming off kind of 2 back-to-back, his probably worst performances of the year. That's what I want to see out of CJ Bailey.
I did bring up the availability report, which came out Thursday of this week at 8 p.m. The guys that we know are out, right? Sean Brown, that's a big one. Spike up front, one of their offensive linemen, that's a big one. Those guys are out. Questionable, Ronnie Royal at safety and J.J. Johnson at safety, which is less than ideal, and Hollywood Smothers and Justin Jolie.
Mm-hmm.
So their availability and their like ability to be 100 or close to 100% of themselves changes this game in a big way.
Is questionable in college football equivalent to questionable in the NFL? Because in the NFL, it seems like questionable is like they're in, but they're just a little banged up. Doubtful is when it creeps in. Do you know if there's a doubtful designation?
Don't know if there's a doubtful. Yeah. I'm looking at Georgia Tech's and NC State's. There's players out, players questionable, and players probable.
Okay.
But I don't see any doubtfuls.
Okay.
I think questionable truly
is
supposed to be questionable.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I will also say this. There's a whole article that I just read about how coaches essentially there's no repercussions if you lie on these things.
Yeah.
There's a team out west that has put their quarterback is in like the last 4 games, and he hasn't played in any of them. And they start him as like doubtful, then go probable, then take him off the injury report, and then he doesn't play.
I'd be willing to bet the way that things are going with NBA gambling and all this stuff, this is going to become a bigger deal in
yes.
college sports, that you're going to have to report this, and there's going to be consequences.
All right, we've hit this game quickly, but we need an if-then statement.
If NC State holds Haynes King for under 75 yards rushing, they win the game.
Okay, I mean that's a tall task, but you're playing a top 8 team, so you wouldn't expect it to be easy. Georgia Tech favored by 5.5, over under all the way up at 58.5. So they're not expecting a pitcher's duel in this one. That's it for Pack Therapy. I know we went on a lot of tangents this time, but there's college football isn't just the stuff on the field anymore. There's a lot of other stuff going on. Hopefully you have fun. We'll see you next week between top 10 matchups for NC State. Georgia Tech this week, Miami the following. We'll be back next week to talk about it.